affect the economy. On the spot tonight, we host Bugweri County Member of Parliament Abdul Katuntu and Abu Mayanja, who is an economist. Gentlemen, welcome to the show and a warm welcome to all of you. You are on the spot tonight. We thank you for having honored our invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we want to look into this controversial shipment into Entebbe of a Bank of Uganda cargo on a chartered plane that also included private consignments. You are a lawyer and he's an economist. Is it even comprehensible that private individuals and institutions can put their cargo on a chartered plane carrying a national currency to the international airport?
Well, I don't know whether the question is to me or to Abu.
You, of course.
You, yeah.
Well, I'm not an aviation expert. But having said that, I think if it is normal, then it will not be where we are today. Because rules of chartered aircraft, they are used exclusively for the person who has chartered that aircraft. In this particular case, there was a contract between the Bank of Uganda and the courier who was supposed to airlift the currency that had been printed to Entebbe. However, it is now unfolding that at the point of departure, there are the extra pallets, as they are called, 5 of them, which were on the aircraft, and eventually the Bank of Uganda officers who were at the time of departure with the consignment realized that anomaly. So when this cargo was delivered at Entebbe, I think the question again went to Bank of Uganda headquarters. How did this happen? Now there are two narratives. One, the official one, is that yes, there were extra 5 pallets that were not cargo for Bank of Uganda, who were the charterer for the plane. What did these pallets contain? Did it contain just cargo of private individuals and organizations, or it was part of the printed currency that never found itself to Bank of Uganda? And I think that's why the controversy is. So there to be 2 explanations. One, if at all it was about individuals putting their cargo either through the people who sold them or the airline that transported them on the chartered plane, it would just be simple breach of contract and it would not cause hullabaloo. However, if this extra cargo was part of the currency, as the second narrative goes, then there would be a problem. Lastly, you see, if you are transporting currency, it is so sensitive a cargo. It has other implications. Under no circumstances should you be transporting that currency with other private cargo.
Can we buy that narrative that we have had, Abu? And we assume that it's a businessman who's somewhere in France or in Belgium. He has his consignment of something in a bag and he hears of a chartered plane carrying a national currency and say, you know what, can you put my bag on board? Is that even believable?
It's not exactly as you put it, put my bag on board, but when you have, because the central bank would have the competence to make an order of how much currency it needs, but not necessarily have the competence of moving it. They have to rely on a supplier. When you look at these global supply chains, these companies tend to optimize their revenues. So I think that it can be a situation where they have cargo coming to Uganda and it could be either intended or unintended. Somebody can make an error and then they have extra pallets. Now, then it goes to the issue that Honorable Katuntu has said, whether they are in breach of the contract, whether the chartered plane is supposed to have exclusive Bank of Uganda cargo, which would be the normal practice, I guess.
Isn't the transportation of currency, Abu Mayanja, such a high security operation, maybe only just known to a selected few, and you cannot just bring in any other thing. And even the other institutions that are being talked about, these are institutions of global reputation. They cannot be hiking a ride.
One thing that we can be clear about is exactly what you have said, that they're not hiking a ride, as in they have all ordered their goods, and they're not exactly in charge of how they are moving. Because you can't expect that somebody from the UN called and said, put our cargo on that particular plane. So that's exactly what I was trying to say. When you look at the nature of the people that had cargo on there, United Nations, USAID.
Allegedly, because they can actually tomorrow say they have nothing to do with it.
I'm going by your own reports. From
the report is saying, that's why I'm saying the institutions of global reputation having their cargo on the plane, yet they have resources and systems.
Even reputable business people who have built enterprises in Uganda with a lot of integrity. So it's hard for you to just look at them and say, okay, there's this foul play in that case. So the anomaly in this case is how a chartered plane, because I mean, when you charter a plane, the meaning in English, I mean, it means you're the only one using it. So this is where I also get a bit confused. Why when you use the language chartered plane, then that means there shouldn't be extra cargo, unless you have yourself allowed that cargo there.
Honorable Abdul Katuntu, you are a member of parliament, but also recently you were even a chairperson of COSASE. You had these members of the bank officials also come under your scrutiny. I just want to put this question. Why wouldn't one think that this has people at the highest level of government, or you want to call it deep state operation? Because not every Tom, Dick and Harry is going to know we're going to carry 350 billion into Uganda. We're going to charter this plane. This has to be people at the highest level with the privy to such kind of information who also can manipulate the system.
I think the biggest disservice which has happened is government has failed to come out clearly to explain what happened. You have different spokespersons of government institution coming giving contradictory versions. You have the police spokesperson, he gives a different version. Then Mr. Fono Pondo, the executive director of, what is it called?
The media center.
The media center comes on a microphone and blasts the police spokesperson. Then Bank of Uganda itself has not come up to explain. Then the United Nations, because of all those people who are said to have had cargo on that plane, the UN seemed to be more reputable organization. So they should have put up a statement. Nobody has done that. So we are left to speculation and what is being posted on social media. Apparently, even the orthodox media, the mainstream press, has not done the public a favor. Because this is a story that would need an investigative journalist to come and say, we have investigated this story and these are the facts we found out. Instead, it is just rumor mongering, it is just gossiping and so on. It is not good for the institution of Bank of Uganda. But let me tell you, at the risk, of course, of sounding like I could even be posturing that I know a lot about that institution. I have been involved in 2-3 processes regarding Bank of Uganda. And because of that, I have some detailed idea how that institution is being run. It has got big, big challenges. That's why even when you have call it a scandal like this, you are not having a correct message from Bank of Uganda. There is a crisis at leadership level and the bank is factionalized. Even the leakage of that information to the public came from the bank itself. The story about extra currency being carried came from the bank itself. So there seems to be one faction trying to outdo the other. And in the process, they're affecting the institution, they're going to affect the economy. Because let me tell you one thing, Mr. Kamara. Which investor would be comfortable in bringing his money in an economy where it is said that the central bank has people who can print currency and throw it in there which no serious investor would bring here money. So I'm going to invest in a country where there are some officers within the central bank who print money outside the normal institution, and it ends up in circulation. So really, the effects may not be seen immediately, but in the long run, it could be dangerous to this economy.
Yes. Mr. Abu Mayanja, when you have the governor of the central bank, who is also acting like the whistleblower, that, you know, I'm smelling something fishy here, and yet you should be having everything in order. Doesn't that show that, like, really emphasizes the point that house is not in order?
You see, I don't want to speculate on whether the house is in order or not, but the governor is also the accounting officer, if I'm to be corrected.
That's correct.
So if a procedural matter is raised by a director, I don't think that it's wrong for the governor to ask for an investigation, because he doesn't have the power. He can't investigate his own institution. However, when you look at the numbers, I looked at the numbers of monetary expansion, M2, which is you know, coins and currency plus deposits, and it expanded from 50 trillion. The economy expanded from 50.5 trillion in 2011 to 100.5 trillion in 2018. And when you look at the monetary expansion, it was 2.2 trillion in circulation in 2011, and now it's 4.2 trillion. In economic terms, you could see that the central bank has exercised a lot of prudence in how they expand the monetary base of the economy. So some alarm may be raised about the stories that are coming out. But when you go and check the record of the numbers, you would see that the central bank has been quite prudent. The other element that comes out that I checked was how much was officially printed, which is 350 billion. And that represents an expansion on the current monetary base of about 8.3%, which would be normal. So when you look historically, the central bank is supposed to control price. So when you look at their target of 5%, we've been out of the 5% target, and actually the instability in the economy that bankers are worried about comes from the fiscal side of the government, their expenditure versus their revenues, which I can expand on a bit later. So I just wanted to comfort you that when you look at the numbers of how the central bank has been expanding the monetary base of Uganda, it's in line with economic expansion. So without that historical problem, and when you also look at the inflation, which inflation, if you print money, like Honorable Katuntu was saying, if let's say there was extra money that came into the economy, you can't see it right now. It would feed into the numbers later, barring other factors like the weather, which might affect our output. But on the record so far, it looks like the numbers add up.
So what you're saying is that the central bank and the governor at the helm of the central bank have presided over some kind of macroeconomic stability for some time, and then we can give them credit for what they've done.
Yes, and to expand on that, and also not disrespect the work of Honorable Katuntu, is that they have two roles. One of the, call them three. When it comes to the monetary policy, because the governor exercises power in that sense without limit on monetary policy. However, when you go to other areas like deepening the financial sector, there may be challenges there. When you go to areas like bank supervision, you may have some challenges there. But when you look at the monetary policy side of things, the cleaning up usually that comes after the elections, when the Honorable Katuntu go in town, the numbers show that, I mean, in those years, the year before the elections, there's a lot of expenditure and there's monetary expansion. And then the years that follow, the central bank raises interest rates. And a lot of people have lost businesses and property because of what is in technical terms called a political business cycle. So if you are to shed blame here, it looks like on the balance of things, then the central bank is the one that comes out looking good compared to the people that appropriate the budget.
But let me ask, if this scandal happen in another developed country, the economy would actually have a negative impact so much. And yet here it seems we're going to move on at business as usual. So sometimes I try to doubt whether really what happens at the central bank has any regard to our economy the way it is, because it looks like our economy is just a peasant economy. People are continue doing their own things. You go to the garden and you have your food, and the economy is more informal. So some of these things may not work really in an economy like ours.
You're talking something very technical. I think they call it monetary policy effectiveness, which has been a debate in economics for a number of years. But without going round in circles, the last time I checked, monetary policy effectiveness in Uganda, as you're saying, wasn't that high. There are measures you can use to show that when the central bank moves interest rates and say we've reduced by 1%, there's actually a response in the economy. And part of the reason that happens is a phenomenon called dollarization on the one hand, where you have a lot of transactions in dollars. That means that the US policy is the one that is actually transmitted into Uganda. And then you have the non-monetary part of the economy, which is that a big component of GDP comes out of subsistence production. So there will be monetary policy effectiveness may not be that high. Then there could be also areas of just what Honorable Katunti is allaying to, where people are in jobs where probably they're not supposed to be, or they don't have the competence. And so they wouldn't be able to marshal the kind of policy that you would feel. Now, in terms of impact, to answer you directly, there will be an impact with these stories. And that is why we have to respond to these questions very responsibly.
Take us through, Honorable Abdul Katunti, if you could. What could be the impact of this kind of scandal and this kind of rumor, this kind of what we see, the contradicting statements from the bank and from the government spokesperson? What is likely to? How is it likely to impact on our economy?
Well, if you are having an economy which runs on markets like the Wall Street, by now I'm sure the figures would have taken a nosedive. We have a very weak market here, as he knows. I'm sure there is even no response you can say because of what has gone on. Why? There are many people who are outside the economy, the money economy, as you are talking about. But as I said earlier, what you need is an investor confidence in the economy, because that is eventually that drives growth when people invest and create jobs and so on. But if you start narratives like this, where you scare off people who could come and invest, say, look here, we cannot invest in an economy which one does not play by the rules, which are known, then you're in trouble. So the effect may not be tomorrow or today. The effect may be in the midterm and so on. And we need to be very careful here. You need one investor to get scared and the country misses out $300–400 million of worth of investment. Just one investor who could be planning to come to the country. So no investor would want to come to a country where the central bank, you see, which is the pillar of the economy, has no leadership. Has no leadership to talk about. That you have a scandal after scandal, scandal after scandal. You can't. So at the end of the day, the effects will come and it will be bad for the economy. And some could be traced to scandals like this one. Now, so we need to be very careful as a country. One, you don't have to scandalize the central bank. That's number one. We don't have to scandalize the central bank, because doing it so you'll be scandalizing the economy. Three, the good gentlemen and ladies who are in that institution should really clean up their act, because what they are doing is not helpful to the institution.
But Honorable Abdul Katunti, for the little information that we've gotten, the whole thing started with them. They are the ones who said, there's a problem here. We need an investigation, shed a light in what is happening here. That perhaps is also a good thing, because if the whistleblower was somebody else outside the bank, maybe that would have scared us the more. No,
but you see, was it done in good faith?
I suppose so.
The information I have is different. The information, and I think Madam Nakalema, she should be investigating that. How was this blown out? Who did it and why? If it was done in bad faith for purposes of cleaning up, that would be okay. Two, I don't agree with my brother Bo when he says, you see, it is okay to call in people and so on. If I'm the governor and there is, I've chartered a plane and some people have put some cargo on it, the first thing I'll do is an internal investigation. That's the first thing I'll do. And secondly, that Bank of Uganda has a big department, a security department. So you can investigate internally. But by the time you call in an outsider to come and help, then it means that, one, you lack a capacity or you have been overwhelmed by the incident, so you have to call in other people to assist you. Otherwise, the Bank of Uganda itself should have this. But you remember when we were doing the Kosase probe, if you followed it, and I imagine you did, we raised one point to the bank. There was that casual nature with which they treated security. Remember people carrying in bags and out of the central bank?
Yes.
You remember? You've forgotten? And to us, this was, nobody could think about it. That a central bank, somebody will come in with suitcases, is not checked, and carries out suitcases, and is not checked. A central bank. It is a highly sensitive and a security installation. Anybody walking in a central bank should be thoroughly checked. Officers.
But on that one, I've had a different experience, Honorable. When I go to the central bank, I have to show my ID. In fact, you're booked in advance before you even come. You can't just show up.
When did you start going to the central bank?
Yeah, long ago. I mean,
I'm not so sure.
This
This thing happened. We even had to go to CCTV.
So actually,
you remember the CCTV?
No, I'm not disputing what you saw, because that happened on a weekend. I'm talking about my own experience of going to the central bank. It's rather involved. Even when you're going to park a car there, it has to be booked in advance.
Can you imagine? But this was on a weekend, and people are coming in and out.
In fact, I think their door is even hazardous, because the central bank door, when you put the card, you enter into something, a glass like this, and you're locked in, and then after it opens. So one of my friends joked that it looks like a good idea for security until they have a fire. Because then you
see, the problem would be Abu, the problem would be you have a system which you eventually beat. Okay. Because ordinarily systems are in place. Yeah. But if they are beaten and then there's nobody you are holding responsible for the security lapse.
Yeah, but even somebody who built the Chinese Great Wall thought maybe he was going to protect the people until somebody wanted to attack, was just brave the security guys, and then they open for you
exactly
instead of putting it down.
That's you must.
So if you have a strong system, you also need to have people with integrity, because a system without integrity will not help you. People will open for you and you'll go.
But then your narrative was that somebody raised the query from within the central bank.
Yes.
But then I would have to agree with Honorable Katuntu when he says maybe they should have done an internal.
But considering considering the investigation we always get, should we, the people of Uganda, believe that this investigation will happen and then they will follow it to its logical conclusion, and then if there are culprits and people are supposed to be punished, they will be punished, and if the money is there, like they're saying, will be recovered, and we move on? Because we do investigations, sometimes even you did gave some recommendations after a long time, and that's it, nothing happens.
Well, I don't know. The one we did, and the speaker wrote to the Secretary of the Treasury the other day reminding him that he needs to submit what we call a Treasury memorandum, requiring Bank of Uganda to respond to what extent they had gone with the recommendations we had made. So, but, the whole thing has been shrouded in some sort of controversy because of the behavior of different government agencies not working together. So that they portray a picture that they're on top of the situation, other than all of them giving contradictory statements and so on. Will it be business as usual? Maybe not. Maybe not. Because at the end of the day, under the Constitution, the ultimate authority over that institution is the president. Because one, he appoints the governor, he appoints the deputy, he appoints the board. The board itself has got a constitutional mandate to run that institution. So they must put up their acts together and find a way of cleaning up their image. They have to, they have no choice. If it was purely a breach of contract, then they should be looking at the parties that they had contracted to do the job. They may not do a job with them. However, if it was other than that, then I think the security should come in and even the other investigative agencies of government to go to the root cause of the problem and address it. But at the end of the day, they must satisfy the public that they identified the problem and they have tackled the problem.
Abu, do you, in all this kind of scandal, read into these manifestations of the brokenness of state institutions, including such a big one like central bank?
That's a tough question, but at the time when Honorable Katuntu was doing his probe, that wasn't pretty. Also, that last audit of, you see, central bank is such an important institution that you don't even want to hear anything like a scandal going to the central bank. So one of the most important things about development is institutional development. It's still work in progress in Uganda, and integrity. But you don't want to hear anything like that when it comes to a place like the central bank. In this particular case, for me, the only weak point I see in all this is the chartered plane, because I'm familiar with the company that does the printing. Good history, good balance sheet. I don't expect them to risk their reputation. Yeah. Then also that means that, to the credit of the central bank, they're using the right supplier. The only weak point which I can't also understand fully in this case is the part of the charter. Now, when it comes to the central bank and it being an institution, definitely they need work. And I told you that it's the results in the market are the ones that show you whether you are doing a good job or not.
There was a similar case, Abu, I think in West Africa recently, in Liberia, where a similar problem happened, again involving people in the highest echelons of the state. Somebody printed money worth $100 million coming together with the local currency of the Liberian state, and was almost they are almost reading from the same script.
That's not the worst case about currency in Africa. There is a president in Central Africa that went to the central bank and carried all the money and took it to his home. And he paid soldiers. And then when the policemen came next day, he had them hanged. He said, "Oh, I paid you guys yesterday." He took the money out of the central bank. So funny things can happen in Africa. You know, we inherit systems, and sometimes, I'm not sure what happened in West Africa, but the worst that has happened about currency is, for example, look at some countries that have inflation of, say, 1,000. Zimbabwe abandoned its own currency. Are you aware?
Yeah, I was in Zimbabwe.
They use a hybrid of 6 different currencies.
But the issue was not about the currency. The issue was about the entire economy at that time in Zimbabwe.
You see, by the time you abandon your own currency,
the economy had collapsed completely.
So to come to the issue of things happening, when there are individuals, sometimes mistakes can happen, or there will be people who just don't want to do things properly, criminals and things like that. So
I think the biggest challenge is the biggest challenge is for government or whoever is investigating this matter to come and assure the nation that there was nothing like extra currency printing. That's the biggest challenge government has.
I mean, according to all the analysis we've done, and me, I'm not a security person, I can't see where the extra money is at this point.
No, I don't think.
But I agree with you that I'm not the authority. The police needs to come and say, we've done our investigation and we found...
It's the police that first made it that...
but if I'm to speculate on the matter, from what I have...
But why do you really, your profession, I don't think we should be speculating over this matter. And the person who raised the issue about printing publicly was the police spokesperson, who is leading the investigator. You get it? So to me...
Then he was disowned by? The
But-
government spokesperson.
But the government is not the
So
one
it's like
investigating.
1 minus
Who-
1.
No.
Zero.
Actually, the one investigating is the police.
In this case, you have to follow what the police spokesperson says because they are the people. It is their job to investigate.
Actually, even if Ofono Pondo realized Enanga had made a mistake, the best thing would have been to call in Enanga and say, look here, you've made a mistake here, go and sort it out. Other than Ofono Pondo to come and disown Enanga and actually bust him on cameras.
So now
He wasn't an investigator. How did
But
he know?
you know, he's an eclectic gentleman, so what he's supposed to react. It's like, what did you expect?
now
No, he's a smart fellow. So
now
he shouldn't be
you,
acting
Honorable
that
Abdul Katuntu, you as a politician, and we are going into an electoral period. Doesn't this scare politicians that if there was money printed, that perhaps this could be used to compromise the election? And I'm not trying to stretch that because
I think we have a challenge whenever we have elections. There is a lot of pumping of money in the economy by some of us who are looking for votes. And these people who have started this economy know that immediately after election, you have a crisis of trying to wipe out that excess liquidity, and that's when Bank of Uganda uses some of those tools to raise interest rates and eventually to affect businesses and so on. This election is going to be not the previous election, of course. There's going to be a lot of money in it, you can be sure. So the speculation is, if you know that we are going in an election, it's now less than 2 years today, and you need money, and you think maybe some of this money is being stockpiled somewhere for purposes of elections and so on. One, it eventually causes inflation.
Expectations. Yes.
Yeah, because one, you have too much money chasing too few goods. And you have all politicians throwing out not money, not for production. You know, just buying votes and gifts of money all over the place. Two, even the country itself is, if a whole year they are not going to be engaged in production. You're going to be running from rally to rally, all these peasants. They are with the Katuntu, the other day with the Kamara, the other day with the Mayanja, looking for LC5, another electricity, another president, woman MP. So the entire population for almost a year, you are not going to be at the peak of your production. You will not be. You're going to be running around with us politicians. And yet there will be money chasing. So you will not have production to talk about. You have a lot of money in circulation.
you have money that's not backed up by any kind of production.
Exactly, and you're going to have inflation. So, my brother here, these are the sort of things that should worry them. And eventually, a central governor, because that is his constitutional mandate, say, now how do I sort out this inflation? Then the Kamara, who is doing legitimate business, has gone to a bank. He has a loan of 17% per annum. You raise your CBR, and from there the commercial banks raise their interest, and eventually you borrow the money at 16, 17, they'll be asking 25, 26, maybe even 30. Businesses will collapse. What is this business you can do, and you borrowed money and you're paying 30% per annum, and so what's it? Unless you're doing speculation.
No, it's no brainer that there's a lot of non-performing loans, right?
There's a big risk there because we've seen that the 2011 election was so tough that the aftermath, cleaning it up before the central bank or whoever is in charge had finished cleaning it up, we entered 2016. So when the interest rates rise like that, it's not always a losing end. The banks sit back, they refuse to lend to business people, and they just buy the government paper because now it's yielding a lot. Also, what that means is, Honorable Katuntu may be familiar with our debt. It has two parts. It has the domestic debt,
Yes.
and the foreign debt. The foreign debt has an interest rate which is quite different. Usually 6% now, but it used to be much less, 2% in USD.
If it is a concessional.
Now, what would happen in
loan.
situations where the interest rate suddenly goes up? It puts an immediate strain on the budget, meaning that if they had budgeted to use 30% to pay debt, it can spike and it becomes 50%. The net effect is that health will be cut, education will be cut. So economists worry a lot about this political business cycle. It can result in a Zimbabwe situation. So it's not a matter to even joke about. It's a real worry that, okay, if I'm using 30% of the resources I have available to service debt, what happens if interest moves from 12 to 30 like it did in 2011? Because remember, government, almost half of their debt is in domestic.
I think the debt wouldn't be a big problem if the government can work hard to raise its GDP. For example, if you had made sure you had 20 million bags of coffee and you get about $6 billion out of that, then I'm sure the percentage of that debt would even come down.
No, the issue is expenditure. When expenditure grows faster than the economy is expanding, and you know how that grows.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a break.
You'll always have expenditure growing.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a
I've never seen.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, let's look at some of these proposals that there should be a total overhaul of the management of the bank. Do you gentlemen subscribe to that kind of thinking? We'll be right back.
Are you in need of being refreshed, beautified and renewed? Come to Sparkle Salon and be pampered by our team of experienced staff that will leave you feeling rejuvenated. At all Sparkle Salons, we offer professional barber, hairdressing, nails, beauty and wedding services to a cosmopolitan clientele in a comfortable environment using proven products at affordable prices. Just walk into our outlets and you'll be instantly attended to. Our salons are located in major shopping malls with safe, ample parking space for your comfort. At Lugogo Mall, Garden City, Forest Mall, Oasis Mall and Acacia Mall. Sparkle Saloon. Professional, affordable and quality services.
I'm Dr. Mirembe, and this is the MS Health Moment. Malaria remains Uganda's leading cause of death, especially in children under 5. Yet there are ways to prevent it. Use insecticide-treated bed nets for you and your family. Pregnant women should always sleep under treated mosquito nets and take anti-malaria drugs to protect both mother and child. Getting rid of stagnant water, clearing bushes from around your house, and planting lemongrass can all reduce the number of mosquitoes nearby. Prevention is better than cure. Be responsible. Live healthy.
This health tip is brought to you by National Medical Stores with support from the Ministry of Health. NMS, passionate about your life.
Shape, height, weight, color. These are the things the fashion industry measures to find the perfect model. But most aspiring models don't have the required measurements. They're often criticized for the way they look and told they'll never make it on a runway. But what if they were given a chance? What if, for once, someone told them they're beautiful just the way they are and that they can be successful models? It's time to change the unrealistic standards of beauty, and we're here to do just that. We are the Fashion Hero. The first fashion role model series that is changing lives and disrupting the fashion industry.
Snap out of it!
Join us with our host Brooke Hogan for this groundbreaking new series. The world's very first Fashion Heroes.
Fashion Hero!
Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara, and my guests are Honorable Abdul Katuntu and Mr. Abu Mayanja. And we're discussing the controversial shipment into Entebbe of Bank of Uganda cargo on a chartered plane that also carried individual or private consignments. There are some legislators, Honorable Abdul Katuntu, who are calling for a total overhaul of the management of the bank. Do you subscribe to this kind of thinking?
Well, first of all, the appointing authority is the president.
Yes.
As I said earlier in the show, the president appoints the board, he appoints the Minister of Finance, he appoints the governor, and he appoints the deputy governor. So
the Constitution gives him too much power.
Yes, it does. So to me, I think you don't have to act like you're in panic. That doesn't sort out the problem. One, is there a need to have changes at the Bank of Uganda? I imagine yes. And I don't imagine so. I can categorically say yes. You need a few changes at the bank. So the appointing authority should actually be thinking about it. And in one of our recommendations, we did address this matter to him. We reminded the board, and the board consists of the governor, deputy governor, and indeed members, what we call management members of the board. We ask them, we remind them of their responsibilities because they are not effectively doing bank supervision well. So we reminded them of their responsibility and asked the appointing authority to consider the reappointment if they don't get to do their job properly. So yes, the appointing authority should be looking at the challenges that institution is facing, and there are some areas which certainly would need a little bit of changes.
But Abu, you seem to suggest that the people at the helm of the Bank of Uganda should actually be given a pat on the back because they've been able to preside over macroeconomic stability for a country for some time, and you seem to suggest that things are okay. Would you buy this idea of a total overhaul?
The overhaul is not about individuals, because whenever you make it about individuals, you lose the point. Central bank governance has moved on, and indeed the world has moved on. And one of the reasons why we are having all these controversies, one of the reasons why cryptocurrencies now exist, why they came. All this thing that we are debating is about confidence in this institution that has power to print money. And that's where some people are saying, no, that's too much. And the globe and the technologies are inventing smart contracts where everything is automatically auditable and it's digital and it has a trace. And there's no one who can complain. If you complain, you can type a few things and you see. Crypto, the people who have invented this are saying the way the central banks behave sometimes is pervasive. But let me come to your point. I think the bigger picture here is that when you look at how central banks are running now, they are separating the monetary policy aspect, which is, because I liked Honorable Kantutu's analysis when people turned up and they said we have independence. And he argued quite correctly that there's a difference between independence on monetary policy and accountability. So the issue of bank supervision, for example, is being separated and put in an institution in its own, which is not now under central bank and monetary policy. So this is where now the world has gone. And the issue of reforming central bank now is not just about changing individuals. Yeah. It's about the institutional setup which emanates from our
we did propose in our report. For example, Kenya has moved away. In Kenya, the chairman of the board is no longer the governor. You have a different governor from the chairman of the board. And what they call the Kenya Monetary Policy Committee is expanded, includes even officers who are not from the central bank, from the private sector, from the academias, and so on. So when we talk about reforms, where I want to agree with him, it's not about really like even individuals only. It should be a little bit more, it's wider. You talk about governance, you should talk about legal reforms, including their specific ones. We did propose, for example, that the function of banker supervision should be separated from banker liquidation and so on. So there are many things that I think can be done at the central bank better to have a better central bank.
So for the case of the saga in Entebbe, Abu, isn't it also proper that we should be, whoever is doing the investigation should be shedding a light into the civil aviation, Uganda Revenue Authority, and the immigration system at Entebbe? Because all these must know what they are really clearing, not so?
Yes, from what you're seeing, I mean, in international trade, before you bring goods in, they have something called an HS code, which is used to identify the tax you're going to pay on it. In this particular case, the URA is confident, and an institution that has come out, and the commissioner said, yes, we cleared this, and this is the airway bill. He came out very clean. So on the part of URA, there's no issue. Now, on the part of investigations, things like, of course, CCTV cameras and what will come in on the part now of security and civil aviation, and that's another story. On the issue of Bank of Uganda, it's too early to make any conclusions, but when you check the company they used to print the money, it's credible. Even the company they hire for logistics is credible. Now, how extra cargo came in, which for me I don't think is extra currency, but who am I to say this? Because I think the goods that were cleared had an airway bill. You can't just ship currency, I mean, and it goes to another country. It used to happen maybe long ago. That is why I was, at some point, people used to have a lot of delays clearing goods through URA opening containers, and they should just start a system like the one, when you're going to the US, you had to first declare yourself, and they gave you a visa. So the modern logistical system now, URA knows when you load your goods in India, they should know that this is coming. It's like the goods have a visa. This is why I think that this story is a bit wild for me, because I'm familiar with international trade and HS codes. You can't just have a pallet of currency just turn up in a country like that.
I'm sure you're also well versed with the chartered planes. That a chartered plane is exclusive for the person who has chartered it. And this particular case, the rules were broken. So rules are there, but they're broken. Like we saw this particular. So to me, I think the most important is one, those goods should not have even been
on the plane
released from the airport. Immediately, the red flag should have been raised. How come? Because once a plane, an aircraft is flying in a country and is chartered, everybody knows this is chartered. So any goods which was not Bank of Uganda, and by now URA security, everybody should have known that is currency. At that point, the flag should have been raised at the airport.
I think so.
That's what the commissioner of URA was saying, that they cleared the currency on the tarmac, and then the goods. So will you hold the goods of United Nations?
No, security would.
Now, I also don't want to totally disagree with Honorable Katuntu. I'm familiar with what charter planes can do, and charter planes are the ones that used to take African money to Switzerland, but that's a long time ago. And gold and all that. In fact, now the biggest issue in international movement is diplomats. You're not allowed to check them.
No, but sometimes you know that diplomatic bags also have contrabands. They are used to do so many illegal transportations and deliveries.
And that's the law.
So in this case, so URA knows exactly what they cleared?
URA came out very exactly. Yes, they came out, they have their airway bills. They say we cleared this, they paid the tax. For them, they have told them, they have even made a statement very clear, said go back to Bank of Uganda. For us, everything is here, what we cleared is here. The only issue is whether you can show it in physical form based on either video evidence or something. And that is why there's still a lot of controversy, because no one can come with any evidence to show that there was.
Is this, Honorable Abdul Katuntu, is this, because I've heard people say that the road is still there in the central bank, is this a scandal, a continuation of the road you try to unearth in the management of the central bank?
I thought and we had a very, very long discussion for several months about the aims and objectives of our probe. And one of them was, what do we intend to achieve? I did explain at the beginning of every meeting we had with the officers of the bank that this process was to help that institution to improve. We are not looking for individuals, but to make sure that systems are working. Because what surprised us, I'm sure like the entire country knows, is that the bank Abu is crediting for doing a great job. Yes, I know they have done a great job. Can say it's winding up a commercial bank for 20 years without a report.
Let me clarify.
And to me,
before you continue,
yes,
Honorable, with all due respect, I said the Bank of Uganda has done a very good job on monetary policy.
correct.
On bank supervision and stability, in that case, there are questions. That's why you are asking them. And indeed, it was embarrassing. I was here. I remember you called in. I was embarrassed that they had resolved the bank 8 years ago and they didn't have.
It's not 80.
That was embarrassing.
More
Now, when
than
it comes
10
to
years.
deepening the financial sector,
That's where you see.
also we have some issues there. So we have to be fair and say, okay, on this one.
And I agree with
and
you.
so
on
that
control
then
of
we can
inflation.
continue.
Control
Yes.
of inflation. Those guys have done a very incredible job.
Yes.
Yeah, they've done a very good job. So the challenges are still there. So you may not, I don't want to use that word, rot, that there's a lot of rot, but there are a lot of challenges and they need to clean up their act. And I thought this would be an eye-opener. The governor made a statement at the closure of our probe. He thanked us so much for the process and said, yes, there are several things that have come to light and we are going back to address them. And now the country should be expecting, how have you addressed those challenges which came out during the probe? So yes, challenges are there. I only hope it will be a pleasant finding if we come to a conclusion that actually it was pure about aircraft carrying some small little things and so on. I mean, that would be very, very pleasing for anybody. Not that actually there is a problem of currency printing. But in any case, there is also another problem. Which country would accept, which government would accept that indeed there is some currency printing?
I think that would be hard because that really.
Which Senate government would come and say, yes, we concede 90 billion was printed, blah, 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 and so on, it came, it is in circulation.
So what you're
That is
suggesting
why
is that if
that's why some of us are finding the whole issue.
Which government would consider that?
And that is why I went and looked at some of the numbers with my analysts just to be sure over the last 20 years whether things add up. And I'm glad to tell you they were adding up, but also to agree with you, it's an anomaly. And also about the probe, we appreciated that probe for a number of years. Some of us private practitioners used to get what you call a cold shoulder when we would show up at the central bank, because you could read their annual report, but you could bump into a director or someone and tell them, okay, this year you have an issue here. They used to be, arrogance from the central bank, not the central bank, but some officials that you could never even imagine. And so these things that you are probing, they did not surprise some practitioners in the market who could see that these things will show up anytime soon. I mean, if people are not listening, if you have a director of financial markets who has never been to Chikubo, you're going to have some problems. Because, I mean, what economy are you running? It's just typical when people plan for Karamoja when say they have never been there. So the probe that you did and, bringing people to account and answer questions, I'm one of those who think that it will come up with positive results. And the fact that you called professionals, and now I see you have even recommended a separation of the, of bank supervision with, this is all positive. Now, this saga, maybe the impact will be that it will put some fuel into, carrying out the reforms that are needed. Because nobody can come out in their sane mind and say that everything is okay. In fact, if everything was okay, this story would have been dismissed even by the journalists. If you brought it to them and said, they would have dismissed it.
No,
But
even
because
the
of
banker
this,
itself would have been able to handle it and to have ended there.
and I think for me, one of the most important things you've said today is that they need to think about the image, and they have to start now doing something about that.
Let's just look at the, if somebody wanted to bring an investment in this country, and you see this kind of scandal that is forming, or even the people who are supposed to bring in money in the Albert and Graben because they are yet to make their final investment decision, these things are they not getting scared? You're expecting to bring about $20 billion into the economy, and you see your central bank is having a scandal. When they say, wait a minute, we're not going to sign this time, let us watch the situation.
Oh yeah, and that's what I'm saying, that the effect may not be like the Wall Street effect, where at the end of the day, there is a bell and so on, so how are
the shares drop and all that.
You will not have that sort of thing. But somebody might just delay decision. So, well, maybe let's wait until this thing. Who are these guys running this economy? Already we have this conflict going on between the oil companies and the Uganda Revenue Authority about taxation and so on. And some of them actually, which I feel they are making a big mistake, they are running away from the law and they are running to the president to seek favors. Yeah? Because they're having a dispute over taxation. Because the law is in place in case you have a dispute over taxation, there's a tribunal and so on.
That is civil society. It's all about
yes.
what is written on the piece of paper. The moment you go away from that, you have anarchy.
Yeah.
So
That's the problem. And now these oil guys giants are now running to the president and putting pressure on him to put pressure on the RA. And the RA is like holding its ground. So look here, these are the rules. So should they bend the rules or not? So these are the sort of situations that will make some of these people saying, no, maybe we should wait a bit.
Okay.
Mr. Kamara,
Yes.
the impact is like Honorable Katunta says, it's called the distributed lag. It's like the best way to understand it, if somebody slaps you, immediately after slapping you, you feel a bit of, then it keeps reducing. So the impacts in the economy sometimes don't come so quickly. I think for me, I'm more worried about the Ebola outbreak right now and the final investment decision, because that makes capital flow into the economy. Most people will wait for the government report, although the noise is not good, like he's saying. So the quicker they come out, the better for all of us.
All right. Gentlemen, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll be opening the lines. You'll see the numbers on your screen. Please pick your phone and tell us what you think about this scandal, and perhaps tell us what should be done to make sure that we remain stable and nothing wrong happens, because we need this country stable and moving forward. Like some people say, it's the one and only country to have that we call home. We'll be right back.
Introducing the first and only medical university in Africa, Finn's Medical University, FMU, licensed by the National Council for Higher Education. We offer all health science programs at bachelor's, diploma, and certificate, which include Bachelor of Nursing Science, Midwifery Science, Medical Education and Diploma programs. Our programs are offered at direct and extension arrangements, and applications are ongoing for the August-September intake at our main campus Fort Portal and at fmu.ac.ug. Contact us on 0787 813575. Scholarships are available for the first applicants. FMU, serving lives, our passion.
On the next episode is brought to you by
Kiri Soda.
Let's celebrate life.
You have to allow time to heal it. Kiri Soda in 4 different flavors: lemon, mixed berry, orange, and Kiri Cola. Celebrate life with Kiri Soda.
Let's celebrate life.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight are Honorable Abdul Katuntu and Mr. Abu Mayanja, and we're discussing the controversial shipment into Uganda of the Bank of Uganda cargo on a chartered plane that also carried other consignments belonging to private individuals and organizations. And this time you can be able to reach us. There are numbers on the screen. You call us and tell us what you think or what you know or what should be done so that the economy remains stable. Honorable Katuntu, there are members of the Legislative Assembly. I remember yesterday Honorable Cecilia Guar was suggesting that this issue should actually be taken away from police and the anti-corruption unit, and we call in the Scotland Yard to be able to make a serious investigation to this.
I know we sometimes don't have confidence in our institutions, but at the same time, Uganda is a sovereign country. Is it that we don't have the capacity? Don't we have the capacity to investigate a matter like this? Even if you brought in Scotland Yard, I remember the last time they were here, it was about the late Kaida murder. What happened? So to me, I don't think because people have a different skin color, they are better than us as professionals. We need to develop capacity of our own institutions. We need to. And let me tell you one thing. You go to that police, and some of those police officers have been to the best police training colleges in the world.
Yes, that's for sure.
Anywhere in the world. They have been to Scotland Yard, they have been with the FBI, they have been all over China and so on and everywhere. So I think that's not the point. And I have confidence in our professions. There is one.
Yeah, but you see, but the chief, if the chief executive of the country at one point says, you know what, there's a problem in the institution. In fact, even says there's some weavers there. He used the Luganda word, Kawukumi has entered. So if institutions have been infiltrated by those who.
What institution doesn't have those sort of weaknesses? You've seen what happens with the American police. They're busy shooting blacks and so on, and they have acted so many times and professional. They do it. All institutions of government all over the world do have those challenges. So what is important is for us to develop capacity of our institutions. And sometimes developing capacity is not about reading, but about doing the job itself. That's how you do the experience. You may not be a very good TV presenter until you start hosting people and then doing it's not about reading it in school. So, but you've been on this program for a long time. You've hosted the best and the worst of people and so on. So you get the experience and become one of the best. And when I look at you, when I look at you, and sometimes I say the old man of CNN. I think he's since then retired. Yes, Rari King, and I'm like, oh, Kamara is another Rari King. So I think we can have our own institution do a job. The biggest problem, there's a lot of cynicism and lack of confidence within our institution. So if you are saying you lack confidence in the police, you lack confidence in
Honorable Abdul Katuntu.
Where do you have confidence?
But Honorable Katuntu, the man who is the vanguard of excellence, who is the fountain of honor, who is the chief executive of the country, is the one who stated that the institutions have been infiltrated, and he said, and he was telling the former IGP, please clean up your institution. So those are not my words.
Do you know?
And every day he's getting intelligence briefs from different areas.
Mr. Kamara, this came from Parliament. Do you know what you people talk about Parliament? Do you know what you people talk about Parliament?
You tell us.
Tomorrow, are you going to get to another parliament from England to do your legislation and so on? You've done the statistics, you've done the polls. What confidence level does the public have in parliament? But this is our parliament. We have to develop capacity of our own institutions. You don't get any other parliament.
The suggestion came from
the
the House.
It's a demographic crisis, I think, because when you look in
came
parliament
from
and you look in the population, there's a huge discrepancy. I mean, if the average age in parliament is, say, 55 or 60, and the average Ugandan is 20 years old, there's a mismatch there. You can't even connect.
No,
this is called the millennials, right? The millenniums who want fast results, and then you have the old school sign here. It's just it's a social issue. It's got nothing to do. Some people don't even
You
think
know,
that you
Honor-
exist,
Honorable
that,
Abdul-
that a parliament is there. I'm sorry to say. But they don't even understand when you come up on the screen and you are saying this and that point of order. People are wondering, can't you just sort it out?
What's this going on here?
But Honorable Abdul Katunchu, it's something you said, and I think you really got very concerned, and I think it is scary. Not that because, well, this is what I remember, that which state, which government would, if it happened that there was a consignment of an individual who also had its own currency coming along with the national currency, which government, which country would come out and say, actually, this happened? So in other words, assuming that the scandal is actually there, then perhaps it never see light of day.
It was very surprising.
Possible, and that question, it wasn't a rhetorical one. It is still on. The question is to you actually.
Mm-hmm.
Which Senate government will say it happen? Or which Senate government will invite in Scotland Yard to come
ask
and ask if it knows that actually it happened?
You know, just to put things in perspective for you, at the risk of being very unpopular with my professional friends, we had a meeting during the crisis. You know, when the economy became really bad, we sat in the room, us who are in the private sector, and the government people, including central bank. And we had a graph showing M2 and M1, which is money supply. The graph had done like this. I mean, growing exponentially. So had inflation. So had, and we're telling them, people, you are killing us. And they were saying, no, we didn't print any money. But the graph, so now you can imagine if you're saying that this is why the normal thing would have been that we don't hear about this. And we
Okay, as we come to the conclusion, we have, I'm told, our economy is growing at around 6-point-something%, right? But then we also have a population growing at 3-point-something and inflation growing at over 3-point-something%. Are we likely to get out anything from that 6% growth of the economy? Like the Honorable Matia Kaseja said, that the economy is buoyant with the 6%. what do we need? What do we need to have an economy that can really work for us? It should be growing at what level?
8%.
Not even in double digits?
If you sustain 8% for a decade, according to theory, it's called the Bevan rate. If you sustain it for 20 to 30 years, it should create transformation. The anomaly with the growth in Uganda is that most of the people are in the agriculture sector, and that one has been shrinking or growing at a less rate. If you take last year, industry grew 7.5 and services 8.2. But remember, services are there to serve industry and primary production. Primary production grew at only 3% and before. So for me, I think the solutions lie in attention in the agriculture sector, where the people are. That's when we can create the transformation. Now, of course, if you're just going by numbers without people actually feeling the growth, the final investment decision from oil will create an inflow of some.
So today you have almost 70% in working in agriculture, some
Yes.
kind of peasant farming. But in totality, they are contributing almost like 23% of the GDP. In other words, you have the biggest part of your population contributing less to your GDP.
Yes, and that's where the problem is. How do we finance them? How do we make smallholders more productive? And that's where the focus should be. And that's where you will start to see faster growth. Because that means that everybody will be, or the majority.
Let me just maybe,
productive.
there's somebody has been online. Let me just pick one or two so that you can make your concluding remarks. I have a caller online. Hello. I have a call online. Hello. Hello. Okay. It appears I'm having a technical glitch somewhere there. And so in other words...
I can hear you.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
What's your name and where are you calling from? And please go for it.
I'm called Roger.
Yes, Roger.
I'm an air freight forwarder.
Okay.
And my question is that...
Your question is what, Rogers?
what I wanted to inform your guests
Okay, now I'm happy you're going to inform us, because I thought you would be the one telling us something, not really questioning us as an air freight.
No, what I want to inform them is that whenever an aeroplane is taking off from any airport, a manifest is given. Why is it that no one is mentioning the manifest? That gentleman who's talking about an airway bill, if all those things were consolidated, every item would have an airway bill. So what I'm asking for is, if that craft left France, it should have a manifest declaring everything on that plane. That's a standard, an international.
The passenger and the cargo manifest?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Rogers. I think those are some of the things, if you're doing an investigation, maybe even a manifest alone can just give you the clue. You don't have to go very far. Or even you go to URA, what did you clear and for who? That alone, I think, can give you the clues to know.
I think you haven't heard of GIGO, garbage in, garbage out.
So
I would like to appreciate what the
yes, you
viewer
respond
has
to that
said,
later.
but also put
I have a call online. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
What's your name and where are you calling from? And please tell us what you have to say and be precise.
This is Isaac from Morago.
Isaac, you're on air.
Yeah, the alleged figure, which is being communicated by the media houses, 90 billion shillings of circulation.
Yes.
I would like to find out what is the impact of an extra circulation of 90 billion onto the economy. Because from my understanding, I believe that in the economy there are very many people who are money laundering.
What will be the impact? What?
There is a lot of cash which is in circulation, which is money laundered all over. So what we should be looking at is, what is the impact of an extra 90 billion into the economy?
All right. Thank you very much. I'm told they have another call online, but maybe let me take the very last one so that we can have concluding arguments. I have a call online. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, my name is Muslim.
All right, you're in Masaka. Go right ahead, sir.
Hello.
Go right ahead.
Yes, I'm calling from Masaka. Yes, my concern, we've had a government spokesperson and a police spokesperson. But in law, I understand my land state council have to understand that we have a principle which states that he who alleges must prove. I understand UN should come out as well and give out its position. So is Mr. Mbire and any other person who had a peso or a luggage on that plane. That's my end point.
Thank you very much, our caller there from Masaka. Okay, gentlemen, I don't know whether you want to respond to some of the...
No, I think we've just listened to feedback.
Yes.
There's nothing to respond to from our viewers. But I just want to have a different opinion. You see, where you've got the majority of your people engaged in agriculture, just give me one country where you've had real growth where the majority of your people are in agriculture. I think the biggest challenge is to get our people away from agriculture. That's the biggest challenge we have. One, if, for example,
well, if
we already have, and let me make my point, it's quite a critical one, and in my own view, we don't prescribe the correct things. One, we are going to have crisis levels of land tenure systems, where, like the place I come from, we have these small land holdings and so on everywhere. You go to Chigezi, it's the same. If you are to free this land to proper commercial agriculture and mechanization, you need to get people off and provide jobs. Younger people need, so you need to invest more in industry, in the service sector, and then you can have proper
I
agriculture.
thought the
and
best
so on.
industries for us, Honorable Abdul Katuntu, would be agro-processing.
Yes. But
And
let
so
me
the
tell you,
agro-processing can only happen if you have robust agriculture.
that is okay, but not where the majority of people are.
No, we can have the majority in agro-processing.
Let me tell
Which
you,
is a
agro-processing is different because that you brought in processing, which is now industrialization.
Yes, that's what I mean.
You get it. But if you are talking about getting majority of our people who are stuck in that peasant agriculture, and we are saying that's where we should be, we are getting it wrong.
Maybe what you're talking about now, normative economics, how things should be. And, you know, Malthus, you know, one of the famous economists, you know, people tend to think too long term, and it's the macroeconomics that injure or hurt African economies. So, for example, every time government goes into an election and they spend a lot and there's monetary expansion, to clean it up, a lot of value is lost, and that's short term. So right now, today, if you're given the tools, economics and expansion of GDP is about opening up new factors of production. So while Chigezi is densely populated, Noya isn't. And so what you're talking about, commercialization, doesn't necessarily have to happen by displacing the person who is in a smallholder. What I'm saying is that the smallholder, their productivity is what we are talking about, because GDP, first of all, expands by you just opening up more land. Then it starts expanding by you getting more out of the same land. That is efficiency and productivity. So the argument is that, and also to talk to Mr. Kamara, one of the most famous economists, Adam Smith, said the base of industry is agriculture. I mean, if the factories do not have the inputs. Now, when the oil industry comes, then you'll have the synthetic industries. Synthetic industries right now that are producing adhesives, paint, the raw materials, the oil derivatives are coming from abroad. So the value addition in the economy is not that high. The service industry in commerce exists to serve primary industry. So it's a misnomer to expect that service industry would grow without maybe technology. But there's one question they asked, the 90 billion impact on the economy.
Yes.
Would be about 3% of inflation, because 90 billion would represent about 2.5% expansion on the existing base of 4.2 trillion.
And 3% of inflation is quite
our time is out, gentlemen.
Very high.
It is very, very
Abu,
high.
what's going to be your concluding remark?
My concluding remarks is that instead of us speculating, like Honorable has suggested, we should wait for the investigations. Then in terms of you know, confidence in the institutions, the recommendations of COSASE, if they included those reforms, we should start seeing some progress in that direction, and then there'll be more confidence in the institution that reforms are actually happening. And this speculation wouldn't get the air and hurt our economy. Thank you.
All right. Honorable Abdul Katuntu, your concluding remark.
I think Bank of Uganda Malay should clean up its act. They should not be waiting for somebody to come up and say it's doing it for them. The board should sit and clean up their act and so on. But the biggest challenge they have is the division in the bank. They have to address it and address it yesterday.
Thank you very much, Honorable Abdul Katuntu, and thank you very much, Mr. Abu Mayanja, and all of you who have been a part of this discussion. Good night, and God bless Uganda.
NTV, turning on your world.
The Timeline is brought to you by
Everywhere you go.
TV, live it, love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that now you can Shazam a song through your headphones? That sounds pretty interesting. Well, Google and our friends at Apple are working more together, and YouTube have a new update for you. Plus, Facebook is now going to